Hello guys, Chandra here. So on these lessons, I will be showing you how to insert values or insert data into SQL database using C# desktop application. So let's go ahead and open our Visual Studio. At the same time, I will also open my SQL Server Management Studio, and I will start a new application from scratch. I will not be working on any existing application. So I'm going to create a new project, and it will be of Windows Phone. And I'm going to call it insert data. So my machine is a bit slow, so it's going to take some time to load. Just bear with it. Okay, my Windows form is ready. But the Server Management Studio is still trying to open. There we go, Server Management Studio is also open. I am now going to start by creating a database. And I'm gonna call this user data. So my database has been created and it's called user data. I'm now going to create a new table, and here I'm just going to say user underscore ID. It will be of type integer. Do not allow nulls, and immediately this becomes my primary key. And I also want this key to be generated by the system. So if I scroll down to identity specification, I can change that scenario here from no to yes. So for the second part, I want to say full names. Let's just say first name, first underscore name. Should be a variable character, no nulls. Last underscore name, another variable character, no nulls, and I will say age. In fact, let's work with gender. This will just be character of the size 1, no nulls. So when I save this, I'm gonna call this details. This is the name of the table. So there we have it. If I refresh my tables and expand to see what's inside, I will find that details is here, and if I do select top 1000, I'm gonna get my table in this format. There's currently no data in my table, so let's go ahead and insert data using SQL first. So I'm going to come here and write SQL statement. I'm going to say insert into details values. Now remember, when I was designing my table, I did mention that user ID must be generated by the system. This is done here. So you can come here and change identity specification from no. The second one, which says is it an identity, you can change it from no to yes. And then when it says identity seed, this is where you want to start. So my first generation should be 1, the second one should be 2, like that, because the increment identity here is 1. So if I put the increment identity to 2, it will add 1 with 2 each time. So that will become, the first one will be 1, the second one will be 3, continuing like that. But I just wanted to give me user 1, user 2, user 3. So I must keep it at 1 to 1. So let me wrap up here. The reason is I don't have to type in that column name for user ID. I can just come here and start calling my my column names here. I know I have one called first name, and I have another one called last name, and the other one is gender. So this becomes your column names, but then you can't put them like this. So if you want to put them like that, this needs to be here. If you want to specify exactly where are you entering this, those needs to be there. So I'm choosing to write it like this so that you know that everything is matching. So the first name here, I'm gonna put my own first name, and remember on Server Management Studio only single quotes are allowed, not double. So I'm going to say my name is Tendo, my last name is Bakari, and the gender is male. So remember on gender I did specify that I just want a single character, so this should work in fine for me. So because it's freezing, you're not gonna be, there we go. So if I execute this, it will tell me that one row has been affected. Remember, execute is this statement here which runs my code. So if I go back and execute this one, you will see that data has been inserted into my table. Now let us go and try to do the same thing with C#. So on C#, when we go to toolbox, we will need a label, we will need a text box, we will also need a button. So just bear with me as I look for the button. We'll also need a button. So I'm just gonna change the font of everything here so that it's quite big and you guys can see what's happening. I'm gonna keep it at 16, maybe give it bold. There we go, this is much better. So the first one here, I'm just gonna go and say the text here is first name. That's where we're gonna capture the first name, and this will be the associated text box where first name is entered. So I can copy this, paste it here, and change the text here from first name to last. The other thing which is left will be the gender. So gender, I'm gonna use a combo box, and I'm just gonna say this male and this female. Those two should be enough. Let me copy the font so that it's exactly the same. Copy the font of last name and the other things I've done before to become part of this one. Maybe I need a label as well, so let me put another label here and call it gender. Right, Then the last thing I need is just a button to save this. And I think that should be all. Let me just align my things to be in order. I don't need the whole big screen if this is the only thing which is happening on my code. So there we go. I prefer first renaming this to say register. This allows your code to remove all of the unnecessary names which were given by the by Visual Studio. And since the standard format is not really looking nice, I'm just going to change the back color to make it a clear white. And I'm also going to change the form border style, and I'm going to put it to fixed tool window. This now allows this to not to be dragged around, so you can't expand it. At this stage you can maximize, so let me just go and change the maximize. When it says maximize box, I'm going to say this is false, you can't maximize this. Show on the taskbar, it's saying true. Let's keep it like that. Show icon, it's saying true. So I'm just gonna say false because I don't have an icon for this yet. Show icon, false. The other thing I might want to do is to say it must always start at center screen. So basically that's what I will do in most of my design. And when it comes to button, I usually play around the colors as well. Change the color for save for the writings to be white. This will then allow me to change the back color also. Maybe to green, just to show that we are saving. The other thing maybe is the flat style. I usually like my buttons to be pop-up buttons. When you come here to the combo box, I want this to not allow users to enter their own gender. You can only select from the one you're given. So how do we do that? We look at the drop down style, which says drop down. I will say drop down list. So you can see here, you no longer have to type, you just have to give it the corresponding value. Okay, so the last thing which is left for me to do here is to make sure that this does not allow multiple values and change its name. You can see the maximum length here, it's more than the maximum length I have on the other side. So I'm gonna keep both of these maximum length to 50, which is the exact size that I have on the database. And I'm now going to change the name of these variables. So the first one says first name. I'm just gonna put first name, text box. That's my shortcut for text box. Second one will be last name, text box. This one I'm gonna call it gender combo box, and I'm going to call this save B. This is for button. So now let us go and try and implement database within this form, because now if you run this, it's going to pop up very nicely. So it pops up very nicely here, and you are able to drag it around, and you can maximize this app. All you can do is just to start typing, and you can only type up to 50 50 things. You can type more than 50. And then as you saw here, you're only allowed to come and select whether you're male or female. And then this button here will then be saving those details, whether you are a male or a female. Okay, let's get back to the code. So now how do we implement this together with the database? We come here to Server Explorer. We click this connect to database. When it arrives here, if it's not coming here, you usually just have to select a data source. It's going to ask you for a data source. You're going to give it a database type. You're going to give it Microsoft SQL Server. And then when you arrive at this stage, you now have to communicate with your database. So my database, I can connect to it in both directions, whether be it via the IP address, which will be this, or via the database name. So anyhow it works. So I'm gonna try to connect to my database using the IP address, which could be difficult, but let me try just using this server name. So the server name is this one. I'm going to copy it and I will paste it here. Then it's going to request for the database. The database is called user data. I'm going to test the connection. Succeeded. Press OK. And then now once the database has been loaded, I can go to the connection string, which is this one here. All I have to do is to copy the connection string and go and declare it within my C# code. Do not forget that the idea here is that we must run this line of code in C# and it must send data to our database. So there we go. Here's our connection string. I'm going to copy it and I'm going to just click anywhere here so that it takes me to my code. So I can either double click on save, takes me to my code, and then I just have to tell C# that I want to use C# library, SQL library. So I'm going to say using system.data.sql client. This is a client application, and within my partial class I'm going to declare an SQL connection string. I'm going to call it con. It's equals to new SQL connection, and then in between my quotations I'm going to put that connection string I just copied there. Now if you're finding yourself with an error here because there's one stroke, you just need to make them two. I usually find that easy. There are other ways to make that error go away, like using an at before the string, but that one works for me. So we have our connection string. All we need is to write this command from C#. So this is how we're gonna do it. We're gonna start by opening the connection. So con.open. Con.close. You must always make sure that once you're done doing what you're doing, you close the connection. So now I'm going to declare an SQL command. I'm going to call it com. This command will be equal to new SQL command. I will put the command within the quotation and it will execute that command using my connection. Right, so what is the command? This is the command I want to execute. Insert. I'm going to copy all of this command, come this side and paste it. Let me just put it nicely. So it will insert first name, last name, gender, values, will be Tendo Bakari, and the gender will be male. So this is the command. But then the problem now is, if I run this, it will forever save Tendo Bakari male as that. So I need a way to change this. So Tendo should be the value coming from the text box. The same with my surname should be the value typed. The same with the gender should be one of the values that the users have typed. So this is what we do. We put double quotes and we put 2 plus signs inside those double quotes. The same will happen here. 2 double quotes, 2 plus signs. 2 double quotes, 2 plus signs. Now within our plus signs, that's where we put our objects from here. So we're gonna put this variable here, or this object, in between our first one, which is accepting a first name. So our first name dot text, we're interested in the text. The same way it should happen this side. Last name dot text, and then on the last part it is just gender combo box dot selected item dot to string. I'm going to turn it to become a string. So let me just separate this so that you see some of these codes. Right, this looks much better. So this is our command. What we need now is to execute that command. So we'll say com dot execute null query, and maybe we might want to say message box dot show, and in between might want to tell the user that we have saved no user added. And you might also be interested in clearing the values. So first name dot text, you can return it back to nothing. Last name dot text, you can return it also back to nothing. So let us do this and see what happens. Remember, our database at this stage only has one user, which is Tendo Bagari. So we're just gonna add the second person. We look for the app. This is the app. So I'm going to say Tinashe Panya, and we're just gonna say it's female. When we press save, it tells us that new user added, and it clears the information. If you guys know of any other way we can return this to select nothing, like how it was looking like in the first place, that would be great. But let's go check if that user has been added. Just going to execute this, and you can see that the user has been added here. Tina Shabanya is user number 2. So just a recap, we started by creating an app on C#, which started like which looks like this. We went ahead and created our database. This was the design of our database with these values, and we added some few users using this insert statement. After that, we searched if there was any user in the database using this command. Then we went back to C# and made sure that we include SQL library. Then we use the connection string of the database after adding it here as part of our database connection. And then the other part was we had to use the same command after opening and closing the connection. We had to use the same command for inserting, but this time around the only difference was that values were coming from our text box and our combo box, and we get these desired results here. Right, that will be all.